Hi, this is Joanne Factor with Strategic Living, Safety, and Self Defense in the glorious Emerald City of Seattle, Washington. Now, as a self defense teacher, we talk a lot about saying no and stop and back off, how to say it, when to say it, but how do we assess if we could and should and want to say yes? Hey, so this happened to me a couple of years ago. I live in a little house in a part of Seattle called Beacon Hill, which is south of downtown and even south of the baseball and football stadiums. It's a quiet residential area, except for the nearby highway and airports like SeaTac and Boeing Field, and they can be just a bit noisy in a droning sort of way. Well, the airport's more than just droning. Well, there can be loud, but the highway is more like a droning sort of way. Now, it's not exactly a cul-de-sac area, but because of the layout, there's limited cross streets and pretty little traffic, car traffic or pedestrian traffic. The nearby highway that I mentioned is Interstate 5, which is actually a pretty big highway. And if I just crossed my street in front of the house and walked just maybe a few feet and found the gate and the fence, opened the gate, walked through, I could run right onto I-5. That's how close it is. So this was, as I said, a couple of years back, middle of the afternoon in the summer. I had just finished teaching a class and I arrived back home, pulled up in front of my little house, got out of my car, locked the door, and turned to go up the walkway. From the corner of my eye, I saw a person. And as I said, in my neighborhood, there aren't a whole lot of pedestrians, especially in the middle of a weekday. So seeing a pedestrian was noteworthy, especially one who was carrying what seemed to be a whole bunch of gallon plastic jugs. He called out to me, "Hey, excuse me, miss, excuse me." I turned. He was on the sidewalk in front of my little house, and I was halfway down my walkway, so there was quite a bit of distance between us. He said that his car was stuck on I-5. The radiator sprung a leak, and he asked if he could get some water to put in the radiator, just to get him to the nearest shop. Okay? Now, I could have run into the house and locked the door, but like most humans, I prefer to be helpful. So I noted he did seem to be kind of stressed. Now, it could have been from his car's breakdown, or considering if I said no, he may have to knock on doors, which would be more stressful, or he might have to call AAA or some other roadside assistance, and he might not have that kind of resource. Okay? But the most important clue to me was that he stayed on the sidewalk. He did not try to get closer. He seemed to be trying to keep distance. I think he was saying, I'm approaching a lone female on an empty street, and I really need water. I'm not going to scare her off." To me, that's what it seemed to be saying. Okay? So, I said, okay, that I would bring out the garden hose and he could fill his jugs to his heart's content. He asked if it was okay to fill them, go back to his car, fill the radiator, and then come back for more water. I said, sure, just let me know when he was done. Okay? So I got the hose, brought it close to where he was, and I still kept a distance of over 10 feet. And I went into the house. Of course, I kept him on my radar, and I left him to filling the jugs. Okay? Now, of course, I watched periodically as he filled them, left, returned, and filled some more. When I figured he was done, I went to my doorway. We made brief eye contact. He thanked me. He actually smiled. He actually seemed relieved, and left. And he crossed the street, disappeared through the gate onto I-5, and I retrieved the hose. Now, if you've taken any of my classes, you may remember that all attackers need both a target and an opportunity. If you short circuit either, you'll be safer. Now, signs of opportunities, also called red flags, that I could have been looking for would include distracting chatter, questions that were getting to a more personal nature, or questions about the area and my neighbors that seemed maybe a little too intrusive. And that would generally be accompanied by stealthily moving closer, because any attack would depend on proximity. That would be my key indicator, and in this instance, it worked out well. Now, keep in mind this was my response at the time. It does not make it the only response or the correct response. This was my thought process that led to this particular response. So that's all for today. Stay safe, live life.